I didn't know I was black until I moved to England. I think people just didn't understand who I was or where I was from. I was heavily bullied as well, and I wasn't bullied in Nigeria. And what you show outwardly is just somebody who is very depressed, and I would just isolate myself. And I look back at pictures of us when I was 13, 14, growing up here, trying to work out your identity. And I think that's probably when film came into the picture. Whatever this medium was doing, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to create the same impact for other people. My mom is a pastor as well. She came into my room and said, Tomisin, God told me to tell you that I think you should go to film school. I watched films, but there's a way of watching. There's a way, because you can watch but not see. And film school gave me a lens of, this is what this is directing. I didn't understand directing.
Film is one of the only places where you don't need a diploma, obviously, to be able to get in. Actually, to be a director, it's easy.
I would counter that.
How has, you said your wife helped you out?
I've not really shared this probably to anybody, but
how are you, Tommy?
I'm really good, bro, really good. It's been a good start of the year so far, work-wise, writing, everything else. So
you gotta give me, what's the deal with the 1920s clothing style?
Okay,
I want to know
right.
everything. I want to know if it's a brand thing, if it's a philosophy thing.
I think it goes back to seeing my father in Nigeria. He always wore a suit. He was always well dressed. And I remember he had a red tie he would wear to work sometimes. And it was always in double-breasted suit, which I mostly wear. Seeing that, there's a sense of, for me, just being very honest, and I've not really shared this probably to anybody, but for me, there was a day that I had a really rough day, just work, life, everything. And I was always dressing well, but that day, things were quite bad, that I looked at myself in the mirror. And the way I dressed visually encapsulated how I feel. I was in a shirt and a blazer, but it was a really horrible blazer. It wasn't very smart. The shirt wasn't ironed, it was rumpled. I looked like how I felt. And I thought, you know what? I think what's interesting about that is I wanted to change that. I wanted to change my mindset about how I dressed, because I saw myself in the mirror and I wasn't happy with how I looked. And I thought, I'm going to try ironing my shirt. I'm going to try buying a tie. When I started to dress well, it actually impacted how I felt. My mental health was transformed because there's a sense of I can do the impossible. I can get wherever I want to go, you know, and that was the shift. And that happened about 10 years ago.
Wearing a suit is your equivalent of make your bed in the morning.
That's it.
Have you managed to close more deals as a director dressed like that?
Most people think I'm a lawyer, so yeah, I don't know how it's working for my brand. Everyone thinks I'm either an EP or a lawyer. Well, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer, so I always say maybe I'm dressing subconsciously to make them proud of me.
Phenomenal.
You know, everyone thinks I work in Wall Street. There are times I would walk down, they'd be like, damn, bro, you know, are you off to a case? I'm like, no, I'm off to prep. I'm trying to write my script. Everyone's just like, damn, you look good. Oh, thank you. So it feels good.
I want to talk to you a little bit about baby Tommy. Talk to me about baby Tommy growing up. You grew up in Nigeria.
Yeah.
What was that like growing up in Nigeria? And I want to know how the move when I believe you were 12 years old affected you.
Yeah.
Like, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was it's a culture shock, to be honest. It wasn't planned. I mean, my parents had planned it, but it just came about so quickly. I remember I just turned 12. I was in school. I had friends. And when you're that age, you envision your life somewhere. Nigeria was all I knew. And I saw myself growing up there. It wasn't until I think my parents told us that, all right, guys, we're moving to England next week. It's like, crap, next week?
Oh, the 1 week notice.
It was, they had alluded that we might be traveling. They just didn't say where. They just said, yeah, we're traveling somewhere. And I thought, okay, maybe somewhere close by in Africa. I didn't think outside of the country, you know, because then I had to say bye to all my friends. And I remember in my school, there was a massive party. It was a big deal. People were emotional and I was emotional, seeing how everyone was emotional for me. It really hit home that these people, I would probably not see them again. Friends that I'd grown up with, my classmates and everything. So it was very emotional, and coming to England, and we came in November, which I don't know why. We should have come in the summer, to be honest. We came in November, deep. It was one of the coldest winters. I remember 2002.
Wow.
And I remember there was just stuff coming out from my mouth. We landed at Heathrow. I stepped outside and suddenly felt the gush of wind. You're slapped in the face that you're in England. It just that. And then suddenly I was like, whoa, what is this air? The air was different. The taste was so cold, and I was like, me and my siblings, we felt it. We were like, we're definitely not home anymore, because in Nigeria the air is warm, as you know, being obviously coming from Morocco, like there's something in the air, the texture of the air is different. We went to like a 1-bed flat. You know, in Nigeria, we were living like kings. We had a 4-bed house. We had 1 or 2 servants. I think we had 2 cars and a compound. And
Yeah.
so we came here, you know, moved to South London, and being in a 1-bed flat, I just didn't understand it. How can we leave comfort to come and hustle, to come and struggle? It just didn't make sense to me. And I was 12, my sister was 10, my brother was 7. So I was the firstborn. They were looking to me. They were asking me questions. They were just uncertain, but excited about just a different culture. The language was different. Obviously, they speak English in Nigeria, but the accent is different. And there are a lot of different tribes in England, like the way people speak, like from Manchester, Liverpool, you know, London. All of this was just very different. So it was just an adjustment period, adjusting to life here. And we went to school, I remember for the first time, about a month in, and that was just weird. I just didn't see the people from different cultures. Because you imagine, in Nigeria, we have different tribes. We have Yoruba, which is my tribe. There's Hausa, there's Igbo, and there's 200-300 other tribes that make up Nigeria. In England, we have different countries, you know. So in school, I remember seeing an Indian guy for the first time. I seen just a Caucasian person. I'd never seen one before, and seeing someone from France, from Italy, from Spain. Just multicultural, and it was just like, wow, this is incredible. Different cultures, countries, languages. It was really brilliant. Being 12 years old, and we came at the right time. If I came when I was older, I would of course have a different experience. They wanted us to be educated in this country, and I know it was something that my parents worked hard for, because it was hard for them. They went from being immensely comfortable to doing jobs that they were, I would say, overqualified for. And my mom, as a nurse, worked nights, and it was not easy, but I'm so glad that we came, because it shifted the course of my life. I wouldn't be a filmmaker maybe if I was still in Nigeria. Would probably be a lawyer, which is what they wanted maybe. I think back to that time, and maybe because I'm a filmmaker, you almost imagine the reality of it. So some moments are exaggerated in my mind, because it's all a blur. It was just happening too fast, and it was just adjusting to life here. I look back at pictures of us when I was growing up here, and I was just in a daze, just adjusting to life in England as well.
And why did your parents decide to move here?
This scheme called adaptation, where I think the NHS were training nurses from African countries. So as part of the scheme, you can bring your family. We came as part of that. But my mum has always been saying, ever since we were quite young, you go to school in England, you be raised in England. I want you guys to have the education in England. Around that time, a lot of people were coming to England. There was a mass migration from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Ivory Coast. In my school, I remember there was a lot of people with Nigerian accents like me, because I had an accent. We all were there. Our moms were nurses in the same hospitals. And I didn't know these people in Nigeria, but I would recognize their accent. But like, you're Nigerian, aren't you? I was like, yeah. But we all came together.
I know that kids could be cruel. Did you feel any kind of bullying due to your accent? Did the kids at 12 make you feel any type of way about your upbringing, your accent? You Nigerian, basically.
That was a big part of it, yeah. Because in Nigeria, I didn't know I was black until I moved to England. I always say that. I just didn't know. You exist in a space that doesn't see you as an other. There's love, there's peace, and you feel welcomed. And I think it wasn't until I moved to England that I realized I was a black man. I was in a country that was more multicultural, but also people that didn't maybe appreciate the color of my skin, whereas the color of my skin back home was celebrated. It was welcomed. And you look around you and there's other Nigerians. But here, I looked around me, there was not many Nigerians. There was maybe in a class of 30, I remember in school, there was like 5 or less. What I saw was a lot of black British people who were born here. My accent was a big part of that. It was mocked heavily. Names were called to me, and I think people just didn't understand who I was or where I was from. I was basically very, very good in school. I was very smart, very articulate, very intelligent, and I remember the first 2 years of being in this country, everything was easy for me. Because in Nigeria, we were like a few years ahead of everybody, somehow. I caught up in about year 10, but like from year 8 to year 10, I would raise my hands in class. Didn't realize that was not cool. I would be like, yes, miss, pick me. Nobody's hands were up, by the way. It was just me. I was just so excited, and I wanted to share everything I knew. But all of that ultimately backfired on me, because people were just like, why is he so eager? And my dad used to, I think maybe trying to save money in barbershop or something. So he cut my hair, and I didn't have any hair. That didn't help, because my head was slapped by people, and their names were called. I was heavily bullied as well. And I wasn't bullied in Nigeria. So it was such a strange concept, the idea of bullying. But I was so lucky that I found my tribe in other Nigerian men, boys, who had come from Nigeria. So we were all together. And there was one especially who is actually my best friend, Gerald Honora. I met Gerald when I was 13. And Gerald is 6'5", big guy then, like massive guy. He actually makes my shirts now. So
wow.
Yes, all my shirts.
Big up to Gerald.
Incredible man, talented man. And we met when I was 13 and he saved me, to be honest, because Gerald would be like a bodyguard, because when I was being bullied, being beaten, all of this, then Gerald would just punch up anybody that would come next to me. He was incredible. He literally saved my life. And if I didn't meet him, it would have been tough because I was very shy. I didn't speak a lot. The irony was when I moved, I was confident. I would articulate myself properly, speak in class. When I was then getting bullied, it just stopped. You go into a cave where you just lock yourself. And what you show outwardly is just somebody who is very sort of depressed. And I would just isolate myself. And seeing Gerald, and then through him, I met other friends. My confidence grew back. I was always with them in lunchtime, and we carried each other. We helped each other through school, and it was brilliant. And now, he's my best friend. He was my best man when I got married. He's got 2 children now, and we just talk about times in school and how far we've come.
Did you keep face when you were going through it? And did you ever feel like it was your mother's fault?
No, actually. I mean, my mother was just trying her best, because she was doing night shifts. My dad was also working, crazy hours. They just inspired me because if it was hard for me, imagine them. My dad was in his early 40s. My mom was in her mid to late 30s. Yeah, I just got through it. I think I didn't say anything about it. They could definitely sense something was wrong. I had to be strong for my siblings. My sister went to my school. She also had a rough time. Hers was really bad too. And I think it's the case with a lot of immigrants who come, especially at that age, very tricky age of 13, 14. You're trying to work out your identity and you want to be like everybody else. You look to be like the cool guy or the cool girl. And I think that's probably when film came, I think, into the picture, and that obviously changed everything.
So tell me about that. Yeah. When did you fall in love with storytelling or just film?
Film was always the constant because film was just great because around 13, 14, just because of the heavy bullying and all of that, I found sort of respite in film. I would come home. It's a film called Starship Troopers, which I saw.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in Nigeria. When you see a film, you remember where you were.
Yeah.
Time of day, what you ate for lunch or whatever. Like, I still remember where I was when I saw that film.
Was it, just say it, Denise Richards?
Denise Richards.
Were you in love with Denise Richards?
I mean, everybody was. Everybody was. I mean, you're just like, who's this woman? Yeah. But just the whole film, the whole, like, it just worked, the film.
I completely agree.
It's got a narrative that's rounded, and there's love, there's tension, there's suspense, there's life and death, it's high stakes. I was watching it on my small TV in Nigeria and I thought, wow. And then I rewatched it when I was 13, 14 and it was just even better. Really.
So film was your solace. Starts out with Starship Trooper where you're 11, confirms at 13. At what point does Tomisin Adepeju start thinking about that as a potential career?
It was a gradual process. I don't think there was a light bulb moment. I think at first I wanted to be an actor. You don't know that there's a director. And then I realized, wow, there's a writer. Somebody actually writes his dialogue. These extras are not just random people. They're actually extras and all these things. So there wasn't a moment that was like, bam, this is it. But it was a gradual process that culminated when I was in college, because in college, you have to pick what you want to do. I remember my father wanted me to do law, and I did it just to make him happy in the first year. But I also did media, film and TV studies, and I just loved it. And for me, it was watching American films. I just loved American films, stuff by Coppola, Spielberg, all these great films. And I just knew that whatever this medium was doing, I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to create the same impact for other people, especially when I was about to go to university, because you have to pick what you want to do. And my parents were like, "You're going to pick law?" And I said no. It was a massive thing.
Did they cry?
They were just angry. Yeah, they were just, because in university I did a film and TV program, and that was what I think changed my life. I was exposed to the French New Wave, Jean-Luc Godard, Truffaut, Chabrol, all these filmmakers, and then I saw Italian neorealism, Rossellini and De Sica and all these filmmakers, and that was when I was like, wow, okay, I'd only seen American films, like just or English or British films, but in university it was just like, wow, there's a whole world of cinema. That just blew my mind. And that was when everything changed. Because I was not just watching the films in uni, I was writing about it. It's a film theory program. So I was writing essays. And when you have to write an essay about a film, you have to watch it and dissect it. And you start seeing the craft, you start seeing the ideation, seeing the visual language, and you're like, wow, this film is encompassing so much. It is translating so much about life, and these are universal stories. When I left university, I was like, yeah, I want to be a filmmaker.
Was there a particular movement at that particular time that affected you more than another, or?
Probably the French New Wave, I would say, especially Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard. I remember seeing that when I was like 20 at university, and the way it was edited, the framing, and that final scene where you have the main character running down the streets of Paris. Yeah, that was the one. And that was what, then I made a film that was an homage to that film when I was like 21. Breathless was just like anything is possible in cinema. He broke the rules. He made a film that was completely implicit with a very bold visual style, made with no money. He went out and shot it. And I loved the love story. I loved the main characters, and transported to Paris in 1960. So that was what I would say gave me license to say I can go out and make work as well.
With Godard, I found it really difficult to understand how these films were revolutionary at the time, because you're so accustomed to 21st century movies that when you look at those 1960 films, if anything, they're actually slower, when in fact at the time they were already incredibly fast.
True. That's so true. Yeah.
But I remember watching Godard and trying to understand.
You don't see the appeal.
It's only in hindsight. I mean, I don't know how it was for you.
Okay.
I had to go back to the past. I remember I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch the big titles of the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And I remember I did that really religiously, like for a solid 2 years.
Incredible.
I was just watching black and white movies from the 20s all the way up to the 60s.
That's incredible, man.
When I watched Godard's film, after having gone through 2 years of just solid old school films, it hit me.
It makes sense. Wow.
I instantly got it.
I wonder, why didn't you get it the first time? Was it more you just went in with the wrong mindset, or you couldn't appreciate it perhaps fully?
The first time I watched it, I was accustomed to 21st century movies. And 21st century movies, they're shooting outside the studio. Martin Scorsese was already creating frenetic movements, frenetic cuts.
Yeah.
He was already doing ostensibly long one-ers. I had already seen movies, particularly like Central Station, Walter Salles, where they were hiring non-actors in their films. And so the thing is, the revolutionary elements that had never been seen before, I had already pretty much consumed through other movies, right? So when I watched Jean-Luc Godard's film, if anything, it left me even more confused.
Fair.
But that's the thing. When you go back then to watch the 1920s, 1930s, 40s, 50s, and you realize cameras were really heavy at the time. They shot mostly in studio. There never was non-actors. They did continuity editing. They would always go from master shot, two-shot, close-up, close-up. But let's just say the French New Waves are the people who brought back that explosive juice to the way they shot their films, which you won't necessarily find in classic American cinema. Godard made it punk rock, and you get it the second time after you watch all of that.
What's so funny is, like, all the films that you said you watched first, Godard inspired them.
Exactly.
So, which is so funny because you went the other way around it.
That's right.
Everything, the filmmakers you referenced, you probably would interrogate it and you would see that they were inspired by him. He inspired, especially when he came out. Breathless was 1959. These filmmakers that you mentioned, they were probably in film school, or they were in the 20s or late teens, discovering this master. So he was the foundation of a new kind of cinema, an independent cinema that was fearless and was, as you said, breaking the rules.
Your parents, you tell them that you want to go into film. How was that received the first time?
The first time wasn't very good. And I was also 16 and they felt, I didn't know what I was doing. But when I wanted to go do my master's, there was less resistance because at that point I was 24 and they accepted that this is what I wanted to do. Masters for Nigerian parents is great. It doesn't matter if it's in film. Okay, they can tell people, my son has a master's. And that's kind of what they were going with. What was funny was my mother actually, she's a pastor. She's very in tune with what I would call the spirit. She talks to God regularly, she prays, and I told you that she prays from like 12 a.m. to like 3 a.m. in the morning. Her faith has really inspired mine and shaped my own faith. And I remember there was one time she came to my room and said, Tomisin, I think you should go to film school. This was a year before I went. And at that point, I was a bit disillusioned with film school. I'd saved up £13,000 working as an usher at a West End theatre. I worked in probably every West End theatre, saving for film school. My dream was NYU because Spike Lee, Cheech is there, and I wanted to be taught by Spike Lee.
Yeah.
When I then saw how much NYU cost, I remember I was in a prep And I probably cried, I think, a little bit, to be honest, because it's just like too expensive.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, that dream is gone. Can't go to NYU because I would have to get a loan. And where was I going to live in New York? And I wanted to leave home. I was living at home at the time, and home was not very inspiring. And I remember I just thought, okay, you know what? I've got 13K. I can maybe make some shorts. But film school was the furthest thing because NYU was the goal. But my mother just came to my room. It was like, she just come back from a night shift at the hospital. She worked in A&E, which is incredible. She would always be so tired. But she came into my room and said, Tomisin, God told me to tell you that I think you should go to film school. And this was a woman who was against me being a filmmaker. And I just thought, what? I was half asleep as well. So I was just like, is this a dream? Is this real? It was definitely real. And she said, yeah, God told me. And I was like, no, Mom, sorry. NYU, it's expensive. She's like, no, but like a film school in England. But I'm like, I had not looked at anything in England. I wanted to live in New York. I was being so inspired by American cinema that I wanted to live there and be taught by Spike Lee. And I just ignored her. Then literally almost every other day for like 10 months, she would come to my room. It would be always after a night shift. Tomisin, I think you should apply. I think this will change your life. All these things. And to basically keep her quiet, I applied. I thought, okay, let me just look at what film schools are around. And I found one which was at that time the cheapest in the country. And I said, you know what? I applied, but I needed £1,000 to go. And I remember she told my dad, and they both chipped in money. And this is coming from two people who were so against me doing film that my dad was so emotional when I told him I was going to become a filmmaker that they now are giving me money to go. And I felt emotional. I was just like, wow, that after all these, they just love me and they want the best for me. And I realized that I'm the first artist in my family. We come from a family of lawyers, of bankers. My dad owned cars. He sold cars in Nigeria, but my dad was also a lecturer. He taught English, history. So my dad has an academic background, but filmmaking, they didn't understand it. So it was out of fear of the unknown, but empowered by my mother, who, for her, she was tapped to something else, something spiritual. And she was just like, go to this film school. So I went to the school and it did change my life. It was a 1-year program and I left there with a sense of knowing who I was as a director.
We've come basically to it at last, which is the question that I've been wanting to ask you. Seriously, for the rate that film schools are at, to what extent do you think that film schools are useful or not?
It's a difficult question because I went to film school when it was cheaper. So I went in 2014 and I remember I paid £15,000. Now, yeah, it's 25 to 30K. So it depends firstly where you're going, which film school. NYU was my dream. I didn't apply, but if I'd gone, I know it would have been worth it for me because for me, what I loved about it was the quality of the education. I was taught by a BAFTA winning director who basically over a year dissected the craft of film directing. What was funny was he would show me the same films I'd grown up watching, films I'd seen 20 times, but it's the way he would articulate what a director does. And that was something I just could not get from YouTube videos. I couldn't get on my own. So for me, it was worth it because through this lecturer, his name is Simon Shaw, he made me realize that you have to respect what a director does. He gave me a new appreciation of that, and I wouldn't have had that without him. Personally, I would say if it's within your means, because I had to work for 3.5 years to save the money to go, but that was what I was prepared to do. The question is, what are you prepared to do? But for me, as I said, it was my mother that made me go. If she did not come into my room, I remember it was 2013, early 2013, for 9 months. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have gone. I just didn't see the value in it because I'd become disillusioned about NYU. The course of my life would be different. But I'm so glad I went because I left when I was 25. And at 25, I knew what kind of director I wanted to be. My films now, I explore my Nigerian culture. Everything I've spoken about in this podcast, about leaving Nigeria, about identity, about my accent, all of that is now imbued in my work. But I'm able to do that because of film school, because I realized that the type of filmmaker I wanted to be was somebody who enmeshed their life into their work.
I guess I'm a little bit conflicted. To be a director, it's very simple. You need to make a couple of short films. With each of these short films, you are refining your voice, you're refining your style, you're refining your identity. Your first short films, all of them do not need to be very expensive. But the thing is, let's say the course costs 20K, fantastically, you already have 20K to spend. And I know that your short films average what, like 3-4K?
About that
okay.
amount, yeah.
Well, let's go even conservative. Let's say 3K, all right? You're pretty much, for that same price that you would have spent to film school, you'd have made 7 short films. 7 short films.
Yeah, true.
With those 7 short films, that also includes the budget to get into festivals. So now you have 7 odds of getting into film festivals all round. With that same budget that you would have spent to learn basic film theory about directing, you are out there honing your skills, making 7 short films. The odds are that you're going to get in a couple of networking festivals. That will either get you an agent or definitely get you your next potential opportunity. You're a lot more of a director. You have a portfolio, you have a website, and people are already considering you for potential other gigs. You would not have had that had you gone to film school.
I would counter that. And I love this discussion because I look at the Tomisin who was making films in 2013 before film school. And I look at the Tomisin making films in 2015. And I became a different filmmaker. And I think that the problem was I watched films, but there's a way of watching. There's a way, because you can watch but not see.
Right.
And film school gave me a lens of this is what this is directing. I didn't understand directing. I thought directing was flowery shots, beautiful, like language. But no, directing is so powerful in the subtlety. And I think for me, that's what I got. I mean, I shot on film, my graduation film.
Yeah.
I didn't even have access to film. I didn't even know, but film school gave me license. The irony was I was the only person that shot on film out of a class of 25 because they didn't think they could. But I knew I had ambitions that were, I think, maybe a lot more than my other peers.
Yeah.
I wanted to shoot for the stars, but also this was all my savings. I had to go big or go home.
I agree with you on this one. Okay, I see your point. But what I'm trying to say is I think there's a better alternative.
Right.
And I think that it's the plan that I'm telling now, because I've had a lot of young students write to me on LinkedIn, hey man.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. And I always tell them, what I'm about to tell you is extremely unpopular.
Yeah.
And I give them David Bordwell books. He is single-handedly the man that made me understand what it means to be a director, what good editing is, and what it means to write a good script. The greatest mind.
Yeah. I
His
remember.
book, Introduction into Film Art, and there's a lot that he's done by himself or with his wife. You buy all of them, 50 quid. And in that, you will have all of the theory and way more than what you would receive even at NYU. I dare say it.
Because this is an argument that I think is something that is so timely and really important.
Yes.
Especially in the time we live in now where there's a lot of working class filmmakers
Yeah.
who cannot afford film school.
Yeah.
Who have to take out loans to actually go to an FTS. And a friend of mine did a GoFundMe he got into London Film School.
Yeah.
And he had to do that and just to pay for his fees. And it was hard to see that because this is a talented filmmaker who had to reach out to the public to give him money, which is crazy.
But this is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to have an optimistic twist to it. You're a director. To be a director, you don't need to have a film school certification. All you need is to have a short film. Grab a camera, shoot. Have a good story. Trust me, if you have a good script and decent lights, you're going to go really far. I've seen short films that went to Cannes. I've seen short films that went to Sundance, shot on iPhone.
Yeah, true.
And not once did I question it. No, it made complete sense. Why? Because the story was absolutely fantastic. The acting was phenomenal.
It's not the aesthetic, it's what's been translated.
Exactly. That's another myth. The camera is the most important thing when you're shooting a short. No, it isn't. The script is always the most important thing.
Yeah, it's king. Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, okay, fine, you don't have a lot of money. Go outside.
I do think that you can have all the tools,
Exactly,
but you might not know how to use them. Because I've seen filmmakers who tell me, "Oh, I've got access to cameras, to lights," and I see their films and it's terrible. So for me, I think you're absolutely right that I think you don't need all those things, but you have to understand how to use them. But why you want to use them? Why do you want a close up? Why do you want an array? Why do you want your character to say this? And where do you want to put the camera? So for me, I had to learn how to use the tools for the narrative I wanted to tell. And I think that a lot of people, they're so excited about having all the tools. I'm going to get the da-da-da-da-da. But then you're like, well, even if you have a great script, how do you articulate it visually? Because there's something about it working on a page, but then how do you translate that with actors? With the pressure that comes, as you know, with directing. Because directing is not theory is key, but being on set is wild. There are things I would prep before and on the day. Things just happen. There's a training ground, I think, where even before I went to film school, I made like 7-8 shorts. Because I had to, you learn, you don't tell your actors what to do or how to do it. There's a way of directing them. That there's a way of translating your vision where it is articulate. And people just now, they want to make 10K shorts. Yeah, they don't want to do many shorts or just fail. Failure, as you know, is a part of growth.
What I want to thank you a lot for is helping me mature in my creative career, because one of the things that you taught me is to manage expectations. Because I don't know if you remember, but the very first time we met, I was so sparkly eyed when I met you.
Right. Okay.
I remember I was so excited about you telling me about being nominated at Sundance and being signed by CAA, and you just telling me to, first of all, just talk to me about your work. Talk to me about what you want to tell as a storyteller. Sundance is great, CAA is great, but that's not the end all make all. You did tell me the work speaks louder than the agent that you have, and that the festivals you've been nominated at.
That's the key thing. I think I get a lot of younger filmmakers who they want to meet me to talk, and I do try and meet them and talk to them, and they get distracted sometimes by your bio, but the bio is just only a small reflection of the reality.
Yeah.
The bio has all your best bits,
Right.
but it doesn't tell you or give you the things you've had to do to get to those best bits. It's the highlights in a sense. And and this is just what I tell people. I'm 35 and I went to film school when I was 24. And so it's been 11 years since I left film school. So in 11 years, it's just been, I've come to peace to realize that I'm not exactly where I want to be, but I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Because when I left film school, I thought I would make my first feature at 26. And I was signed to CAA. That didn't quite work out. For me,
So, sorry, how did you get, first of all, signed to CAA, and what do you mean by it didn't quite work out?
no, so they signed me based off a short I made. I made a short film in 2019, and I was out in LA, and they signed me. But I think for me, I maybe wasn't ready because I think the industry is so long, and the life of a director is very complex, ups and downs. And I think that the reality was what I wanted, they just maybe couldn't give me at the stage I was. Because I wanted to tell certain kind of stories. The work I make is imbued with my own culture and my own roots and history. And the opportunities I wanted, I just wasn't getting. I would have meetings and, things will appear to be great, going well, but then it would fall true. But also I was just, like you, I was wide-eyed. I was excited, and I was just like jumping, and I would speak too quickly, or I wouldn't assess things. I wasn't mature. And I think to be a filmmaker, there's a certain kind of maturity you need to be able to articulate yourself very well, to not be too desperate, to be confident in who you are and in your voice. And all these things just took time really for me. And I think with CAA, it was great because I got so many opportunities, meetings, and I was in certain rooms, but I had not made my feature. And it's a feature that was very close to me, and things were just not moving. And I realize now that I'm now prepping the feature with Ken Loach's 16 films and BFI. And these were the people that I was meant to work with because they really understood what I wanted to say and my voice. So it was a lesson really, because the disappointment can be heartbreaking, but I think I'm a big believer in things happen for the right reason. I'm just at a place where I'm old enough now to make this film I want to make, and I'm ready to make it, but make it with the right people. Because filmmaking is a family affair. You have your tribe. You have your agent, you have your DOP, your editor, your actors. I'm excited because now I'm in the process of making this film now. So I think when I met you all those years ago, I didn't want to tell you everything is great. This is what I wanted to be truthful about my own experiences and just share that and say that the industry is not always pleasant, but I think if you know who you are and if you're resolute with that, you will go really far. And if you're patient, and I think I was just so impatient in my 20s. I just wanted everything now. But I realized that I just had to stop comparing myself with others. Like we all do, we have goals in mind. There are filmmakers who you want to imitate their journey. They made their feature at 30 or at 35 or 34 or whatever. You never really hear what it took to get there. And for me, I had to really reorient the way I saw my goals and why I wanted to make a film, my first feature at 30. Because for me, it wasn't based on reality. I was trying to be like other directors. Chris Nolan made his first feature when he was in his late 20s, 27. He shot that over a year, and that did so well for him. He went to festivals, and it gave him a leg up in a sense. And when I saw that, I thought, I'm going to do that. But then that's Chris Nolan. I'm not like Chris Nolan. I'm making film in a different timeline. The kind of narratives I want to tell is very different from Chris Nolan. We're in an age now where there's so many incredible filmmakers. The industry is saturated with great work that you have to make sure that you have a singular voice. But to find that voice, you have to build it over time. And that's like reading, that's traveling, that's living, it's life. And I think for me, I've spent the past few years just living, and I run my own film platform called Dailies. There's so much more that I've done that now will inform my work as a filmmaker.
So you would say, don't compare yourself, take your time, don't be impatient, tell your stories, focus on the short films or even the feature films, scripts.
Yeah.
Go out and make those, and the rest will follow.
It will follow. And I think if you are making work and it's out there and the work is reflective of who you are as an artist, somebody will see that. They'll want to support you. It's happened a lot to my peers, friends, colleagues, so many filmmakers I know who are making work that encapsulates who they are, and the work is beautiful. It's heartbreaking, it's emotional, and that inspires me. So all I can do is really be truthful to myself, because yes, your films are so beautiful, and I can't make the kind of films you make because the film is translated through your own lens and through your way of seeing the world. Same thing with any other filmmaker. And you've cultivated that over time. You've found your voice. You're still finding it. That's really it. And the right opportunities will come. So for me, I've just had to just trust that. There are filmmakers who, in their 20s, they make their first feature at 25 and they blow up. And that's fine. And I think, unfortunately, Instagram and social media doesn't help because you see others and what they're doing and you compare yourself. I think it's important to be inspired by people, but not compare yourself, because it's a very thin line between comparison and inspiration, where you want to make the kind of films they make. Oh, they're making a genre film, horror. Maybe I should make horror. But do you want to make horror? Maybe you make dramas. Maybe you make comedies. But because horror is trending, I'm going to make a genre film. But the genre film does not have their sensibility.
Yeah.
That is so singular, and so I can't make a horror film. Maybe one day in the future, but I know the kind of films I want to make. But I'm not rushing to make a horror film because I've just seen that somebody made their feature as a horror. What's funny is a friend of mine, Paris Zarsilla. Paris and I, we met through a scheme we did in 2019 as part of BFI London Film Festival. We're part of this scheme, and Paris is an incredible director. His short is played South by Southwest, big festivals. Me and Paris, we wrote our features during lockdown together. We started writing together. We would send each other the first 10 pages. He would read it, give me feedback, vice versa. Paris was writing a horror feature, all set in one house. And I was writing a drama about a crisis of faith. Two very different films. Now, Paris shot this film in 2022, funded by Shudder, and my film didn't really go anywhere. I was still trying to get it made. Paris shot the film. The film had a world premiere at South by Southwest, won the two biggest prizes there. It got a theatrical release. In all of this, I could have been firstly bitter. Oh, damn, Paris is doing he's doing all this. But what it did, it reinforced what I'd always believed, that firstly, you support your friends, but you find people that are making their own work. Because Paris's film is one of the most chilling horror films I've ever seen. Beautiful and emotional. But his success inspired me to dig deeper into my own drama and interrogate the themes in there. Because the film that Paris made is really embodies the way he sees the world. But he uses horror as a lens to explore those themes. I'm using drama. And for me, his success just made me realize that what Paris has made is his work, and I have to find mine. And mine has not happened yet, but he will come and say, how's it going, Tomisin? Is there anything I can help you with? He even voiced it at me yesterday saying that we have to have a catch up. But I just think it's really important to trust your voice and trust yourself, but surround yourself with people who are on the same journey as you, because they can really inspire you.
Do you think your faith in God has helped you a lot in grounding you and locking you? Because when you talk, you're not trying to impress. You're just very confident.
I think it's marriage. Getting married has changed my whole worldview. I mean, my wife is an artist, and finding somebody who believes in you, who can push you and motivate you is important. And I think finding her, changed my whole world. And that's definitely shaped my character. But I think God as well. My work interrogates faith. My first feature is about a pastor of a Pentecostal church in South London who questions her faith when her son is killed. And I've made other work about faith healing.
All of your work, I'd say. I mean,
yeah.
What was it? Marianne had the element of faith. Appreciation had the element of faith. Literally, walu walu in the church.
Walu,
walu.
Yeah.
Then what was it? His journey mercy. I mean, I am Joseph. It's just
That's
just in the title.
That's very much yeah. It's funny because you mentioned Cardrea, and I remember seeing Odette when I was 26. And I remember seeing that film and I thought, wow, what a profound piece of cinema. The way Drea just interrogates faith and identity and family and love and loss just beautifully. And then works by Ingmar Bergman. And there's so many works that I've seen growing up that has shaped my own exploration of faith. And I think that I'm so grateful that I have a medium where I can actually encapsulate my fears, my dreams, my worries. Film is such a medium to interrogate life. And I think I'm so grateful that I've been able to do that through my work. Because faith is so complex and it's so individual to everybody.
Yeah. Bergman is a phenomenal director that you mentioned, but he's also quite unapologetic about his views towards religion. Have you been offended by his films?
Not
Have
really.
They made you angry?
I think for me, Bergman is a complex man. I saw the documentary about him, and he was a tortured soul in some sense, but then that is in turn why he made such great work, because it came from a place of questioning, of searching. He was restless, and he could sort of imbue that restlessness in his art form. But no, I never felt conflicted. I think for me, I just firstly respected the fact that he broached those themes in his work. They were very complex themes to interrogate, and he always brought such humanity to them and such depth and power that regardless of where you stand, you can't help but really be enraptured by the beauty in it. There's a potent spirituality in his work. I don't know if it's because of his upbringing, he was raised in a church, but he's also obviously has very strong views about religion as well. But the work I think is of a man who was searching for something, and he knew that there was something else out there, and his work tried to capture that.
Yeah.
And they were ethereal, really. Every frame, every image, and the tone and the mood. And I remember seeing First Reformed by Paul Schrader. It's inspired by there's a film called Diary of a County Priest.
Yes, I've seen that one.
Yeah. So it's sort of inspired by that film.
But that's Bresson.
Yes, yeah. So that was Bresson, because Schrader's inspired by Bresson, by Ozu. But this First Reformed has shades of Bergman's films and Bresson, of course. I remember seeing that film and just like being blown away by the fact that what Schrader did in that film, in a way, because Schrader has, again, very strong views about religion, organized religion and faith. But for me, it's not even about the artist. For me, it's the potency of the work, and it's the craft of their cinema, but it's the way it makes you feel. It transports you to a very specific place, and it forces you to interrogate life's uncertainties and the deep mysteries that form our existence. So work that can at least try and broach these very complex themes, I respect it. And that's what I do with my work. I'm a man of faith, but I want to question it. I want to interrogate it, because I know that faith has a lot of unsettling elements, and it does bring peace to some people, but not to everybody.
Well, I mean, it's called faith for a reason.
Yeah.
You have to interrogate it, otherwise you wouldn't need faith.
Yeah. Exactly. We should just end there. Nah. I'm just kidding. Nah.
I'm very curious.
That's so true. Yeah.
Being in a long-term relationship myself, how has, you said your wife helped you out?
In every way. I mean, in every way, she's brilliant. She has such a way of seeing the world, and she really allowed me to change my mindset around my work. Sometimes we can be married to our work, and in some sense you have to be, but it should not consume your whole life. Because the life is what informs the work. And if you're always working, how do you live? And for me, she allowed me to live, allowed me to actually consider other things and to bring other elements to my work. And she made me more of a multifaceted person as well. True, her own work is beautiful. She's a award-winning poet, writer, curator, and seeing someone who you love making great work that also inspires you is the best feeling. She knows about all my films. She's read my work. She gives me feedback, and I give her feedback as well. I think allowing space for love. For a long time, film took up all of my life, where there was no space for anything else. No space for my friends, for my family, no space for me. Sometimes you are choked by it. But I think for her, I had to realize I had to create room. And really, it's a very important room that she occupies now. And I think meeting her allowed me to realize that actually there's more to life than film. Film is everything to me, yes, but her love has allowed me to, I think, dream in other ways. And that in turn has actually made my films better. Because for a long time, I thought I can't not find love, but just wasn't on my focus. It was just about be the best filmmaker I can be, make the best films I can make. And that's it. That was it. That was the start, the end. But meeting her, I was like, I actually need the space to allow love to come in, to allow the light to come in. And she's definitely brought that. How about you? How was your relationship sort of impacted you?
I actually think that, surprisingly enough, you know how you said you were married to your work? She's allowed love and life to come in.
Yeah.
Beforehand, I just didn't have a lot of focus, and that's what she brought in, you know?
Right.
She just she allowed me to do a thing at a time. She also, she just given me so much confidence. Before that, I was very insecure. Basically, she brought forth a lot of confidence and focus. both of these have allowed me to be where I'm at right now. And I'm almost certain that as a director, what you need is 100,000% confidence.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but when you know that you can go back home to your rock, it just gives me freedom to make mistakes because I know that she'll always be there. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
Whereas if you don't have that anchor, then you're a lot more scared to make mistakes because you're thinking, oh my goodness, it might actually have even bigger repercussions because I don't have that anchor. When you have that anchor.
It's incredible, man. It's what I tell people, because a lot of people it's about the work, and everyone has their own way of working or sort of living or processing things.
Yes, 100%.
But I think that, and it's also speaking to friends who are in relationships, filmmakers who are married, or there's something that it brings, there's a grounding it brings, and especially if they can also inform the art, if they can actually positively shape the art, because you don't want your art to suffer as a result of that. Your art should not really suffer. It should actually become better.
Also, relationships, I mean, it's taught me a lot of things because obviously being with her for so long, it taught me that you need to work for it. And so it already gives you that patience and it gives you that grit to just overcome barriers, because in relationships you don't necessarily always get what you want, because you need to make compromises in order for the whole thing to work out. As a director, that's literally what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. You're every single day making compromises, but still aiming towards that light, and it works out at the end. And so ironically enough, it's almost like a training ground for a director, is being in a relationship.
That's a good way of seeing it, actually,
which I find really quite interesting.
That is so true. That's true. That is true. Yeah. It's good training.
Absolutely. And very random question. How do you find movies that deal with Jesus? Do you have any preferred Jesus film?
I think, I've seen a few actually over the years, and I think...
What's your take on those?
I think it's the intention behind them. And you can always feel that when you watch the film. You can see what approach are these films glorifying? Are they mocking? Are they... Is it overtly stylized? Is it so for me? It's what's interesting is I'm more drawn to films that actually don't even explore Jesus. I think I'm more drawn to films that explore characters who are conflicted. Because for me, especially when I was going through my own faith journey, I was in a place of searching and questioning. So because I've seen a few over the years, but I've either not really loved them, or I find them that the filmmakers did not have the best intention making them. Like, because you're like, what's the purpose of the film? Like, what does it serve? What is it telling me about this? I won't say I avoid them. I don't watch them. I mean, what's great is I watch everything, because then that way you can make an informed decision about it. But I think I don't actively maybe seek those films, because I think for me, religious films are a different genre. Like, what's funny, my parents, I don't say they thought I made religious films or I made Christian films, because Christian films, as you know, it's a very lucrative market right now. In America, Christian films are making a lot of money. They are popular because obviously America, there's a lot of Christians in there who flock to the cinema to see these films. There's a series called God Is Not Dead. It's like 3 or 4 parts, and these have grossed millions. Because it's a really popular market. And I always say I don't want to make Christian films. I make films that interrogate sort of themes around religion, around faith, around spirituality, because I feel that the films that have inspired me are incredibly broad, and I want to draw from all those sources. So I don't actively seek those films, and the ones that I have seen, you question the motivation, because at the end it just feels like it's a pastiche in some sense.
Have you seen The Passion of the Christ?
I've seen that, and what's funny, we watched that on Christmas Day. Of course, about
what a Christmas movie.
I know, right? It was like, my mom was in tears, and they killed Jesus. I'm like, of course, that's how it ends. We saw that all together, and I do remember there being that. What's funny, I haven't had a discussion with a friend about it like yesterday, because he saw it and recently and was really moved by it. But I remember we saw that on Christmas Day about 14 years ago, and just a visceral experience, because a film I really love by Scorsese.
Silence.
Silent. Have you seen that?
I adored that film.
Yeah. Like, I know he'd been trying to make it for a while, the film, and he shot that when he was in his 70s. And this is what I always say about intention, because you can see that Scorsese's intention for that film was really honorable. Like, he wanted to portray the realities of these priests and what they suffered, and the things they had to do for their faith, but not just beyond that. In terms of craft, in terms of vision, it's just masterful.
I recently watched a movie that really moved me. It was called The Hidden Life by Terrence Malick.
Oh, I love that. Really good film, yeah.
Really good film. And there was a conversation that was had that I thought was absolutely fantastic by a Christian YouTuber, right? So he discusses all things, filmmaking, but also related to Christianity. And he said that was much more of a Christ-like film. So I don't know if you know, but basically the main character, who was a conscientious objector to going to war for the Nazis, obviously sentenced to death. You can learn more about the character of Christ through those films than actual films about Christ.
Yeah.
And that was like an argument that he'd made, because whoever plays Christ will never live up to the actual figure. However, instead of just going literally using an actor to play him, if you go by it through man and all his faults, and you see him resist, obviously, all of those temptations, and you see him act in accordance to the Gospels, his argument was you felt the actual presence of Christ.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And it's a lot more powerful than just
showing, Christ.
Oddly enough, it's as if having a film about Christ is telling and the other one is showing.
Yeah.
And you know, they say show, don't tell.
That's everything. That's so true. I do agree with that. And you know what? Because you asked me that question and I said I don't seek those films because Christ as a figure has been so lauded, it's been so written about, it's been so explored and dissected. And when you mentioned that film, I remember seeing that film with my friend in the cinema, and we walked out and we were just like, that was a spiritual experience. Yeah. But then Malik obviously lends that because he's just an incredible filmmaker, very meditative and just really beautiful film. But you learn a lot about Christ, seeing characters like that, whose their character, the way they carry themselves, their mission, their purpose. You know that there's something otherworldly there. And that's what I always try and imbue my work, because I think God has called us to live Christ-like lives. We're trying to embody that through our actions, through our character, through the way we treat other human beings. And that's what I've always tried to do. And it's not easy. It comes with great sacrifice. I just love films about real people. Sometimes when I tell people that I'm a man of faith, you're seen as a spiritual being, or you're in a different realm. But hidden life and silence, these are just men with families, men, flesh and blood like us, men who they had a goal and they wanna do something, and we can relate with that. And that's more profound when you see these men do extraordinary things that defy sort of plausibility.
I was really stuck at one point here in London trying to sell my movies, or in France and Paris. As you know, London being not only like the capital of Europe, it also happens to be like the capital of international distribution. So you're not only in competition with people from the UK, you're also in competition from people from the rest of the world, all parts of the world. And so it can be really overwhelming, and it can be quite frustrating, because instantly your voice is shunned because everyone else is shouting. I thought it was really interesting. We met at Curzon Soho, and I basically was telling you how I was starting to get a little bit antsy about it all. And you just listened. You just said, Yasser, you're Moroccan. That's a blessing. And it's the first time that's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What were you getting at? And you said, the world has never been more interested in international voices. International voices are an it thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I went back home, and I remember telling Lucia, I said, man, this Tomisin guy, the Gaul. And she goes, what did he say? Go to Morocco, make your film in Morocco, bro. I promise you, the commissioners and the people who organize film festivals and the producers, particularly with the fact that you are Moroccan, will be a lot more receptive than if you're trying to sell a Western story, in London. And so what I did was I actually took it to heart, and I did everything. It was so much easier to meet big-time producers in Morocco than here. Before that, I was blocked. I was never thinking outside of the box. And you're the first guy who made me realize just how lucky I was to be a Moroccan filmmaker. And so I really want to thank you for that, dude. Really want to thank you for that. I know that I couldn't end on a better note.
Oh, man.
And I think it's so powerful. If you're part of a minority group, enjoy it. Now is your time.
Yeah. I think for me, it's just the kind of films I make, and this is what I recognized in you, films that came from a deeply personal place. And I learned this, again, going back to our film school debate, which is interesting because I am pro film school, because in film school, I was the only Nigerian in my class of 25. Everyone there were from different countries. And I realized that there were so many personal stories that I was afraid of telling. I didn't want to be labeled as just a Nigerian filmmaker. But then I realized that there was so much beauty embedded in that, because I was a Nigerian British filmmaker. So I could bring in that perspective there. But I think it's immensely brave to tap into personal stories, because it reveals vulnerability. It unearths such complex, profound themes, and to be able to draw from that is really powerful. So I recognize that in you, that there were these incredible stories you have. What's funny, my films are Nigerian because they're in Yoruba, but they interrogate my Nigerian British identity. But I think it starts from home. And what's funny is I love work that interrogates home. What does home mean? My last short film, it's about home, and it's also sort of imbued in my work. But I'm just glad that I could be of that help to you, bro. And you're an incredible filmmaker. Like,
thank you, I appreciate that.
Incredibly talented. So this feature is going to be special. I've heard about it. I don't want to share what it's about, but when the time comes, everyone will know about it.
Thank you, man. I love you, brother.
No worries, bro. Thank you so much, brother.
Take good care.
Take care, man.